welcome to OEM Updates live interactive session on Manufacturing Outlook 2021. Indian manufacturing has emerged as one of the trending sectors in terms of growth. The government India's Make in India program has enabled India become a global manufacturing hub. Business conditions in Indian manufacturing remains positive amid pandemic, where the manufacturing component of IIP stood at 129.8 during 2020. With the help of Make in India and Vocal for Local drive, India is prepping up to become a high-tech manufacturing sector in the future. Also, with the global giants like GE, Siemens, HTC, Toshiba, Boeing, and Tesla setting up their manufacturing units in India, we expect an increase in the localized manufacturing. Today, on this note, you're going to be a part of a live interactive session on Manufacturing Outlook 2021. Today, our panelists will talk about the business opportunities following the budget allocations for the manufacturing, SMEs, and MSMEs. We will also discuss the disruptions in terms of technology, investments, and impetus on localized manufacturing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege for me to introduce you to our today's esteemed panelist, Mr. Ravi Raghavan, Vice President IMTMA and Managing Director of BFW, Dr. L. Jyotish Kumar, President of Additive Manufacturing Society of India, and Mr. P. L. Muthusekhar, Managing Director of Nord Drive Systems India Private Limited. So delegates, get ready for an interactive and engaging session on Manufacturing Outlook 2021. Beginning with this session, I would like to invite our first panelist for today, Mr. Ravi Raghavan. He is presently the Vice President of Indian Machine Tools Manufacturing Association and the Managing Director and CEO of Bharat Fritz Werner BFW. He has an experience of more than 30 years in operational and strategic management in engineering and manufacturing. Today, he is going to discuss about the prospects for machine tools and indigenous manufacturing with the budget. So delegates, let's welcome Mr. Ravi Raghavan.
I'd like to start by complimenting the government, I think, which all of us should do, probably for an unprecedented budget. I call it this way, that every budget is a change in the page of a calendar, but this budget probably changed the whole calendar and will be remembered for many years to come, many decades to come, where there would have been a real change in the way we look at things in the manufacturing sector in this country. The impetus has been great on manufacturing, directly or indirectly. Now, look at the increase in the budget outlay of railways, power, infrastructure, etc., which is the strong need of the country. Now, this is a circle in itself. You have a good infrastructure, you develop the manufacturing sector. You develop the manufacturing sector, you develop a good infrastructure. So everything is very well knit, and that's going to drive in the whole capital good industry to a different phase. And machine tool industries will see a great change in the demand that's going to come in. So it's now going to, the game for some couple of years is now going to shift from the demand side to the supply challenges. And we all will have to work towards that to grab this tailwind that we are getting from the budget. The budget allocations, for example, 665 crores for the Indian Ordnance Factory to make the change in defense. That's something very important for the Indian machine tool company. With the new purchase policy of the government also coming in, the MSMEs will play a big role, because for less than 200 crore of tenders, it would be the MSMEs and the Indian companies which will be participating, no global tenders for that. The 630 crore outlay on account of machinery and plant only for Indian Railways. Yeah? These are all good changes that will pep up the demand. The support for MSMEs was something very extraordinary, not only in the budget, but also in the pre-budget announcements that have happened in the country. Now, collateral free loans for businesses. It's a big move by the government. Fund of funds for MSME. The whole change in the definition of MSME. Now, what that has also done, which we should understand, is by increasing the ceiling of the classification, it gives us an opportunity for a smaller company to look as becoming a medium to becoming a larger company. So the aspirations can also grow. Otherwise, people didn't want to grow to move away from that category. The MSME grievance redressal, which was launched in June 2020, is another great initiative that the government has taken. Now, by doing all this, it's now the ball is in our court, the MSMEs and the manufacturing companies, to take this and run. And for that, we will have to dedicate ourselves for the quality and cost parameters that are expected. We can't expect everything that the government gives, but we don't give back if the whole thing has to become a success. So to make the initiatives successful, we will have to play this ball of having a focus on global quality and costs. Now, this also opens a lot of opportunities for indigenous manufacturers. We'll see a lot of global companies coming in and making in the country, but at the same time, it will develop the whole ecosystem for the present local manufacturers to up their game. Okay, the 50,000 crore allocation for NRF fund over the next 5 years. This should help all of us to remain focused on research, because anything on research and innovation will only take us to the level of playing at the equal field with the global manufacturers. Okay. The GOI approved production links incentives, another big move that the government has done. And that's a huge amount, 1.97 lakh crores over the next 5 years is a big amount which all of us should make use of. And this will encourage the domestic manufacturers to participate in the whole new industries that will come in. These are sectors that have been identified, and we are told that as we go along, the government will add some more sectors into this. Right? So, for example, in the electronics and technology products, that's about 5,000 crores. For automobile and auto components, 57,000 crore. Telecom and network products, some 12,000 crores. So these are big amounts that are being allocated where the MSMEs can expect a greater participation. The recent budgetary allocation of also the 97 crore for enhancement of competitiveness of the Indian capital goods, that's under the DHI scheme, also would aid in the capital goods industry going up. We should also remember that close to 50% of the capital goods requirement is met through imports. So that opens a wide range of opportunities for the local manufacturers.
So moving ahead, our next submission will be presented by Mr. P.L. Muthusekhar. He is the Managing Director at Node Drive Systems Private Limited, India. He has been associated with Node for last 9 years. He holds an experience of more than 33 years in the gear industry. His area of expertise includes supply chain management, organizational designing, management strategy, and process improvement. Today, Mr. Muthusekhar will elaborate on manufacturing decentralized motors and drives technology in competitive market. So delegates, let's welcome Mr. P.L. Muthusekhar.
Yes, already Mr. Ravi talked about the budget. I would like to talk about the manufacturing outlook. Is definitely promising after the ruined 2020 due to the pandemic and the lockdown. Many industries and sectors touched the bottom. So now it has to only spring and bounce back to the 2018 or 2019, the pre-COVID levels. And the budget has given the vaccine dose already for certain industries like textile, infra, construction, machine tool, automobile, mining, general manufacturing, and raw material production, also the total ecosystem. So yes, the PLI scheme is also helping these industries, the production-based linked incentive. Yet to see the results, but at least the start is a good start. And if we have to talk about the country, I think we have the fantastic resources, and we are the largest population of scientists and engineers. We are the second largest in the world, having more number of engineers and more number of scientists. So the entire manufacturing GDP currently is about close to around 17 or 18%. That's the contribution which is coming from the manufacturing, which I'm talking about the 2020 results. But there is all possibility that we can definitely go to 25, 26%. This is very much possible. And infrastructure is the key. I think even Mr. Ravi also mentioned it. If the foundation is very strong, the building also will be very strong. The same is the case with infrastructure. So that's what I always tell, that the budgets have to, consecutively for at least a few years, maybe 6, 7 years or 10 years, they have to do a huge spending on the infrastructure. So that's where the industries are looking for. And if you look at the return on investments in India, the money market or the funds which are flowing through FDI, if you see that compared to 80% of the countries in the world, India has a better return on investments. So that's the game changer. So if you look at many countries, they are flat or even they are having a negative growth. So that's the positive aspect of India. And even if there is going to be a shift of 1% or 2%, that will make a big change. And I'm sure this budget is definitely going to help the industries. And the barometer, I always take the excavator market. The excavator is the area where you can decide that how the industry is going to progress in the next years. But if you look at the excavator market, 2018 was a fantastic year for them. And 2019, they were down by minus 15%. And 2020, they were down by 37%. So still, I think there is a long way to go. And hopefully this budget will help to bounce back and get back to our glory days of 2018 and 19 pre-COVID.
Dr. L. Jyotish Kumar. He is going to have his initial submission. He is the president of Additive Manufacturers Society of India. He holds a master's degree in rapid product development from De Montfort University, UK. His area of specialization include additive manufacturing, laser deposition for additive manufacturing and applications, industrial application of rapid prototyping and manufacturing, aerospace, automotive, biomedical, industrial engineering, etc. So I welcome today Dr. Jyotish. He will talk about the revolutionizing Indian manufacturing with additive manufacturing technology.
So additive manufacturing technology is making rapid advancements in its applications such as defense, automotive, aerospace, space, consumer products, biomedical, and engineering industries in India today. So there are a lot of things are happening. So if I give an example, in just a second, let's open there. How the additive manufacturing technology is revolutionizing all these sectors. For example, if I take aerospace and defense, some of the components which are highly critical and which cannot be manufactured or machined by other processes are being manufactured by 3D printing, metal 3D printing processes such as laser metal deposition and electron beam additive manufacturing and so on. Some of the components for defense and aerospace segments, landing gears, thrust reverser doors, small surveillance drones, so on and so on. Also critical engine components for repairing of turbine blades, which are high value components. So these applications are having like a low volume production of high value products, which is having a highly complex design and which gives fantastic fuel efficiency for an aircraft and improved product quality and utility. This is for the aerospace and defense segment. When it comes to automotive, there are various components which are being manufactured using metal additive manufacturing today, such as intake valves and engine components, gearboxes, and air inlet, and engine control units. Most of these components are being manufactured and put into use, and most of the cars what we drive, which we drive today, they are all having some of the components in 3D printing components. So this shows that there's an effective, cost-effective solution. The additive manufacturing is become a cost-effective solution for Indian manufacturing segment. And also some of the components which are obsolete and we are not able to retrieve those components are being manufactured using the reverse engineering process and also the 3D printing process, which is a very important factor in Indian manufacturing scenario, which shows that revolutionizing Indian manufacturing segment. And also electronic segments for that matter. Then healthcare. Healthcare is very important, such as surgical models, then surgical instruments, implants, dental crowns and bridges. They're already being used, and it's the patients are every day getting transplanted, and implants are being implanted. Okay, there's so many scenarios where the manufacturing scenario in India is going up and up every day, and it's revolutionizing the way we used to make things. Okay, it has changed a lot. And consumer products such as jewelry, shoes, clothing, the most of the shoes and jewelry items, they are going for full-time 3D printing. It has become a business for some of the industries. Okay, so there are some online what do you call this, portals. If you want to build a necklace or a ring, something like that, you just select it. So they're going to print it and send it to you in another 2-3 days. It's a fantastic solution for the manufacturing scenario. Otherwise, the casting of a jewelry using gold or any other segment, it would take easily 15 days to month. But within 2 to 3 days, if you select a design and pay through online, and within 3-4 days, your favorite jewelry will be at your doorstep. These are all the way things, manufacturing things are being changed, and so there's a lot of things contributing to revolutionize the manufacturing segment, the scenario in India through additive manufacturing.
So with the increased focus on localized manufacturing, what kind of employment opportunities can we expect in the coming years? As you know, we have been seeing the issues like unavailability of skilled laborers. So what are your views on it?
Employment increase will not be in the same linear proportion as the growth happens, because everybody is becoming productive. If we as companies were doing some work with 100 people, today we are doing with 80 people, tomorrow we'll be doing with 70 people. So unless we grow faster than the productivity improvement, there will not be an additional job coming in, and that's why the employment will not add up to that. That's why all companies will have to grow at a much faster rate. And that's what this is going to do. What's the whole idea of Atmanirbhar, according to me, is also a social, Prime Minister calls it the national mission of development. This happens, the social status of people will not improve, the quality of social life will not improve. Right? So all of us will have to grow definitely faster than we improve the productivity of things. Right? We make a machine, actually the customer expects that our machine is more productive tomorrow. So everything in life is becoming more productive. Now there are two challenges. With digitization coming in, there will be a change in the type of skills also required. Right? So learning, relearning will be a daily affair now. It cannot be that I started my career with X and next 20 years it's going to be the same. It would be doing the same thing. Skills are going to change. The way we're going to work is going to change. So one can be employable only if he or she is ready to relearn things, and that's going to be a daily affair. So that's going to be the change in things. But the whole philosophy of vocal for local, Atmanirbhar, etc., is more towards this thing of social thing than a industrial thing. Unless you have jobs, you will not have secure societies, safer societies, and that's why the country needs it more than anything of GDP. Let's keep aside GDP and per capita and all that thing. To have a healthy, safe society, we will have to grow faster and give jobs to people.
Yeah, I wanted to add a point to what Mr. Ravi said. Is very important. The productivity has to increase. Certainly, no doubt about it. If you compare India with Indonesia, Indonesia has twice the productivity levels than India. If you look at China and if you look at South Korea, they have 4 times higher the productivity than India. And if you look at certain sectors alone, like for example, if we talk of electronics, if we talk of pharma, then the South Korea is almost 18 times, 18 times higher in productivity than India. So I think Mr. Ravi touched a very right point. And second is the job creation is also very important. If you look at last 13 years, I'm talking of 13 years in India, the manufacturing has added only 1% more in terms of jobs. Whereas the service sector, the IT, the finance, service sector had added 5% more jobs. So we have to add more jobs because there are a lot of youth population available, especially a lot of young female graduates are coming. So we don't have a policy for taking a woman employee. So that is also needed. I think I fully agree on in terms of creating jobs, manufacturing, and second is productivity. I think these two are the key factors.
What kind of policies and reforms will take manufacturing sector to a significant GDP contribution for our country?
One is the infrastructure spending. I think the key point here is the government spending. I think this budget is addressing the government spending, particularly on infrastructure. And the FDI. See, if you even look at the FDI, last 5 years FDI into the country, average is only about 25-26% goes to the manufacturing sector. Otherwise, if you look at the services sector, gets about close to 20% every year. So whatever FDI comes, 20% is invariably goes to service sector, and manufacturing gets the lower share. In some years, even they got only 18 or 17% in 2017 and 18. Out of $37,366 million came to India through FDI. Only 7,066 is the share for the manufacturing. So that means precisely it is only about 18% which has been allocated for the manufacturing sector. So the investments going in the manufacturing sector, like in the beginning, opening, Mega mentioned about Siemens, then GE, then Tesla, all these kind of companies coming to India. I think that will make a big difference.
What kind of actions or what kind of reforms required to bring back India into the mainstream manufacturing?
I would say, as I said earlier, I think the initiatives now have been sufficient there. Now, yes, maybe 3 years ago we could have said that there's a need of government interventions, etc. But sufficient has happened. I think the ball is now in the private sector, the manufacturing companies, etc. How well they take it to it. There is huge amount of opportunity if the countries are looking for China plus one strategy, right? If we start looking at the way our GDP vision has been put for $5 trillion, $1 trillion for manufacturing, every manufacturing company will have to double 2.5 times in next 5 years to reach those targets. So it is not an easy task. We took probably any of the companies would have taken 30 years in an earlier regime to reach 2.5 times, and today people have to do it in 5 years, and it cannot be done the same way we have been doing, right? So I think the ball is in the company's hands, the manufacturing industry's hands. How do they take it? Government interventions may not play a significant role in pushing that forward. That's my view.
Which are the segments you see that in coming years are going to be very promising in manufacturing?
Automobile has been a major part of our business because they are a big consumers of machine tools. But the newer sectors are something which are very interesting. With infrastructure growing, we see that the commercial vehicles would take a place very fast. In railways are investing a lot, and most of the equipments coming in for the railway um, sector has been imported machines. There've been a huge amount of defense focus. If you see the private sector entering the defense for the end products, for example, tanks, etc., they spend a lot of money in developing the end product. Now the end product is proven. They have to now start manufacturing those end products. Like if a tank has to be made, there are a lot of components which have to be machined. So this is going to be a huge consumption in the next phase for the machines to be right. So, and the aerospace and defense, aerospace has been going through a rough patch, but once it comes back, that's going to be a new opportunity. And the silver lining is the electronic industry, which with the new PLI scheme, etc., and the Make in India initiatives, I think that's going to be something which should consume a lot of machine tools. Very surprisingly, globally, if you see, actually more machine tools are consumed in the electronic sector number-wise than in automobile sector. So we are still doing okay without even selling a single machine in electronic industry. So you assume that electronic industry starts, absorbing the machines. We'll be nowhere in the supply side. We'll have to really pull up our socks to meet that demand. So it's a very exciting phase that we are looking at from IMTMA side when we map the requirements. And we requested, that's why we requested in one of the meetings, the government to set up a council of secretaries, because the manufacturing goes across all the departments. And as it is with this government, they did it so fast that even we can't think about it. Within a few weeks, this thing was said. They had a first meeting, and now all the ministries are talking to each other. In a country where 50% of machine tools are imported, I think that's a great opportunity. We can't ask anything more than that.
India becoming a manufacturing hub for a world. This was one of the conversations we are listening in last couple of years. Are we really prepared? Our grounds are really ready for that?
I think two questions you asked. One is about, are we going to become a global manufacturing hub? Yes, we are progressing towards that. No doubt about it. The very important factor here is the global competitive index. If you look at the global competitive index, close to about 70 countries in the world, or 68 countries to be very precise, are always measured, and our best score came in 1989. I think it was, we had a 41 ranking. And if you look at many years, even last 3-4 years, we have been hovering around 45, 47, 43. The last number what we got is 43 as the global competitive index. I'm talking of 2020. That's the recent situation. I think it's like nervous 90. We have been in the nervous 40 for a long, long time. So we have to definitely come down, in this competitive index. Even you see countries like Vietnam, you can see countries like Bangladesh. They are moving up the scale, bringing down their numbers better than India in terms of growth. I think that's what we need to do. The global competitive index, we need to bring it down less than 40. I think probably in a year or two. I'm sure there's local, vocal, then your Atmanirbhar, then the Make in India. It's all towards that. So once we reach that global competitive index, definitely India will become a global manufacturing hub. And the another point is, if we have to see the China, many companies or many investments from many countries wanted to shift or looking for an alternate. I think India is a very, very viable alternate. Even if few percentage shift has to take place from X country to another country, the size and magnitude has to match. We can talk of Vietnam, we can talk of Bangladesh, but how much portion can go to these countries? Very, very minuscule can go. So India is the size of the country, and the skill power, what we have, I think we have a lot of appetite to take. So this is what my answer towards becoming a global manufacturing hub. I think we are moving in the right direction. There are a lot of positive points. When you ask about Nord products are motors and gearboxes, which goes across the industries, sectors. You name the sector, whether it's a spacecraft or whether it is a salt making, or whether it is an aircraft production, or whether it is an airport. Everywhere the Nord products are being used, almost like 100 sectors. So we see a promising happening in few sectors like road construction, infrastructure, then automotive, then automation, industry 4.0, warehouse and logistics, because India after the GST, the warehouse and logistics business is increasing, like Amazon, Flipkart, they are putting up a centralized or automated warehouses. So that business is increasing. And pharma and chemical, that's one of our forte. That's one of the strong areas. Even during the peak lockdown, we were operating because, we come under essential services. We were supporting the pharma companies. I think these are the promising sectors, and Nord sees a good progress. And if you ask about Nord, in the last 7-8 years, we have done 3 expansions. So that means we have pumped money, we have acquired land, we have built 2 additional storage facilities and buildings, 1 service workshop. So last 7-8 years, we have been continuously investing in India, and company is only 15 years in India. So I don't think, I can't explain more how much India is important to Nord, and then how much we are investing in India.
There are many companies, many sectors which are ready and are doing it. They have demonstrated the success of catering to the world. Others are in the path. What one big advantage India has is as a great domestic market. So whenever you have to be competitive, you also need a scale. And here you don't have to struggle for getting a market. You have a market if you produce it properly, get to the base of a, catering to your domestic market. And then that gives you the cost advantage, all the experience to take it to the global market. So we shouldn't miss that. But all boils down to the productivity part. Otherwise, cost arbitrage is not a game that we can play. It is not for us anymore, because automation takes away everything. Today, to make certain components, cheaper to make in Germany than in India, because the cost of capital is much cheaper there. But what we have to do, spend much more on innovation and engineering. I think we can't just be making commoditized product and fighting on costs. We have to have a higher value added thing where we can compete with the bigger nations, advanced nations, and challenge them on our competence. Now, Industry 4.0 is another area that may be a blessing in disguise for us. That's strength of our IT combined with our OT. When both of that convergence happens, I think we can build a newer manufacturing model for India, which no other country has followed. And that can be a niche way of us to take that step forward.
So digitalization has taken its right shape during the COVID period itself. Even this digitalization started some 15 years ago, but the progress what it took during the COVID period is abundance, and it was probably the fastest or the rapid progress it took place in terms of digitalization. Even it was very difficult for organizations to educate their employees or use the digital media, but it happened like anything. It was like a wave. So I'm sure that when the such investments and such kind of bodies come to India and establish their setup, it's going to help. That's for sure. There is no doubt about it. I think it's in the very right direction.
If you see today's scenario, the government of India has come up with a policy where I am also one of the expert committee member to draft the policy, and the policy has been approved. The first and the foremost thing is to provide skill development and create a workforce and be industry ready. So we don't know after 5 years or 10 years, the requirement of engineers which are industry ready with all these advanced courses and skills. For example, in terms of 3D printing, design for additive manufacturing is there. Then 3D printing, what do you call it as engineers and diploma holders. For all these, what do you call workforce segment, we need to provide them a skill and make them industry ready. So when there is a huge demand in the industry, so we have to be ready. And this is what we have been doing with the government of India also. And very recently, we come up with a policy to set up a national center for additive manufacturing in association with the government of India and Telangana government in Telangana. So, as I said, the first and foremost thing what we are going to develop is a skill force which is ready to adopt the revolutionary things which are going to come up in manufacturing segment by adopting robotics, automations, and 3D printing. So we should not let it go. Any technology which comes forward, we have to embrace. So we have to adopt, okay, and we have to be ready to face the future challenges in manufacturing segments.
How do challenges of deployment of AI and ML in new age digitalization and 4.0, etc., for enhancing mission reliability?
I think that's the way forward. As of now, what's happening is technology is moving in one path, the products are moving in another path. So there's a convergence that's not happening. That's what I told earlier. Now, when you do remote monitoring, preventive maintenance, I think AI is playing a big game in this. It has already come into. If you take companies like ours, if we would have hired 100 people last year, almost 40-50 people are with this background of ML, AI, deep learning, etc. Because all these are becoming part of machine. It's not a mechanical product. Uh, so uh, that's going to increase the efficiency, connectivity between the companies and products. What's more important for us to understand is now it's not going to be the companies that will be the winners going forward. It would be the whole supply chain of that company. The company which has the best supply chain upwards and downstream will be the winner. So the connectivity and all that can only happen if we use this technology tools, and that's really come up in the machine tools now. So it will play a bigger role only going forward.
Okay, and Ravi sir, how do you see that traditional Indian businesses embracing this kind of technologies?
I think people are open. People were a little bit hesitant, and now there have been successful case studies. The confidence has come in. Now, the whole idea is, I mean, it's not that putting up an AI or ML into your machine, but look at the effectiveness on the application that the customer can get. So what we're telling is, look at the solution that's needed and then put in the AI and all that. So it's not that my machine has, ML app into that. It's not so straightforward. So I'm able to use that to give a benefit to the application of the customer. I think people are ready to go for it. It's very surprising that the smaller companies in India are adopting it much faster than the bigger companies in India. They're open to experiment, use it. And there are many examples that we ourselves have built it over the last 1 year or so. 3 years ago, when we spoke about edge processing, even the best of technology companies are not heard, and they said, we are talking something that we don't understand. Today, the whole machine tool industry feels that edge processing is the way to go forward. So I think we have made good moves, and people are adopting. It's only the curve will become more steeper as we go along.
How do you think digitalization and automation will affect the huge workforce and employability of the country?
It will affect employability if we take it as it is, right? Because there is an automation in the way work will happen in future, right? But if we go to that learning phase, we adopt to the new ways of doing, I don't think digitization and automation is going to reduce any employment. It will change the way of employment, it will change the mode of employment, but it will only enhance employment, because that is going to give us newer fields of application. They are going to open us newer doors of industries which we have not thought about, and this canvas is going to become bigger. But if we are going to keep the canvas same and say that we are going to lose job, yes, we are going to lose job. But these are going to increase the canvas. So we will look at where are the other jobs and how it is. Net, it is going to increase the amount of employability.
How do you apprise the present scenario of observing technology in workspace?
We are already Industry 4.0. Our products are already ready for Industry 4.0. And, it's also having artificial intelligence plus predictive maintenance is possible. So that's what our products are ready. And we are already selling these products in India, please, including construction industry and robotic industry or automated storage and retrieval industry or warehouse and logistics, airports. I think Cochin Airport was the one which went with the intelligent drives a few years back. I think it was about 4 years back. They went with the intelligent drives, and worldwide airports are today going with the intelligent drives, and which already has a predictive maintenance also included. If you look at the Nord, we have a couple of production centers, 100% automated. So even on Sundays, even on night shifts, the entire shops are automated. So that's the kind of level of automation what we have in our Nord facility, and we are expanding in Poland, we are expanding in US, Italy, in China. Many of the manufacturing locations, most of the locations are with currently with automation. And I agree with one point on Mr. Ravi is that the repetitive jobs will be lost in automation. When automation is coming, repetitive jobs will be lost. But my view is slightly different. Per capita income will increase when we learn the automation, new skill developments, and those kind of jobs, Industry 4.0 automation jobs. The per capita income will increase, and it will give new types of jobs. And only thing is, the skill development, upskilling has to take place. When the skill sets are, different, when we are going to globally compete, when we have Industry 4.0, automation, machine learning, all the, the latest fundas, what we are talking, still the India has not seen it in full light. Once they see it in full light, the knowledge, the skill level, the operations, the productivity, everything is going to increase. When the productivity increases, your per capita income also will increase. So you will be very comparable with global standards.
Take an example of aerospace industry to machine aerospace, critical aerospace or engine component. Earlier, we used, for example, if I take a titanium material, which is a very scarce material and it's very expensive material, and if you want to make a turbine blade out of this titanium bar or a stock of material, there's a huge waste of material. But after adopting 3D printing, metal additive 3D printing technology, there is only 5% waste of the powder. So, and it's fast also, and any complex geometry can be machined, and it can be further sent for further heat treatments, and you can put into any aero engines and run the engine. So this way, if you take one case scenario as the aerospace industry, the technology is contributing a lot and revolutionizing the manufacturing segment. And also, I would like to add a point to Sri Muthusekhar ji. In construction field, there is also 3D printing construction field has come up. Okay, and if you see in Tamil Nadu, L&T company has built a 3D printed office. So definitely the manufacturing and the advanced manufacturing, the technologies which are available today, they are revolutionizing the way we were used to do the things, and helping us to reduce the time. And the main hassle when it comes to construction field is the labor force. Okay, it's very difficult to control them and keep an eye on them. But the technology is really helping and reducing our stress level to do the things better. Yeah. As I said, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology meeting Government of India, where I am also one of the expert committee member, and we have drafted a policy on the strategy paper to implement and adopt 3D printing technology across the country and to compete with the global peers. Okay, so we were importing a lot of foreign machines, but now under this policy, we are promoting to manufacture Make in India machines under Atmanirbhar scheme. Okay, and we are also we made a very important point to almost all public sectors and defense segments to use and adopt the technology, the advanced manufacturing, such as additive manufacturing, robotics, and so on. So where you can cut down the cost, and you can machine or print, or you can manufacture any complex geometry parts, so that we can avoid the dependency on foreign countries. Okay, so we can reduce the dependency on foreign countries and foreign machines. And some of the Indian companies which are already there, which are making small steps in additive manufacturing, manufacture of machines and softwares, we're also hand-holding them and giving financial support to elevate our manufacturing capability to achieve Make in India concept. Yes, of course, there are a lot of revolutionary policies are coming up in terms of additive manufacturing, and we are setting up a first national center for additive manufacturing in Telangana, which is a really big center and big boost for the manufacturing sector. Yes, for our Indian scenario.
Working with our parent ministry, which is a DHI, and building what are the skills required for the future, because things are changing in this industry as well. We're working with academia, with colleges to modify their courses wherever possible, and we have our own skill center. IMTMA runs a school for the basic skills required at every level. The more we create the mechanics, operators, engineers, so we do all sorts of training. It's not only for one level, but including the design engineers, the thing. So a lot of finishing people come in, go to the schools, and then come to us, make them employable before they come and join us. So these are the three levels that IMTM is working on. So the same school again, encourages all of our member companies to absorb them, which we do regularly. So we would encourage that young engineers, young diploma holders, even ITS, undertake those, and they are ready for employment.
The manufacturing sector of India has the potential to reach US dollars 1 trillion by 2025. And how do you view this goal?
Reaching is for sure, but the timelines may slightly vary. See, basically, running a company or a business in India, you have close to around 6,000 odd compliances available, number one. And most of the compliances keep changing, and most of it you are not even aware. You need to keep an employee, or you need to keep a system, or you need to hire an external agency to tell you about what are the compliances. I'm talking in general, because the compliances can vary: size of the organization, type of the organization, number of resources it has, number of people it has. But the numbers are very, very high in terms of the compliances or the filings. I think close to about 338 filings you have to do it in a year. So if you don't file, you are penalized, and you will be having some other problems. So I think this has to be simplified. So once you simplify this, things will improve. And second area, which I have been always telling in any of my discussions, is if you take care of the existing industry, like we are a German company invested in India. So if you take care of the investments in India, if you take care of the company which is already set up in India, automatically the investments will keep pouring. So you need to not look at for the new companies, you need to take care of the existing companies. Once you take care of them, the new investments will flow, or expansions will take place.
Are we really out of the COVID impact in the manufacturing sector?
Industries are not fully operational as of now, because there is a little bit of scare among the workforce and the management. Okay, because each and every day the new things are coming up, and the news channels are telecasting 24/7. saying that the new virus has come up from this country, Africa, South Africa, from Brazil, here and there. The people are already fed up of this virus from past 1.5 year, and they are all scared, okay, and they have not spread their wings yet, okay. So there are a lot of confusions to be cleared from the government of India, from the health department, and a lot of precautions has to be taken. And definitely, it's not a question where I can answer. Okay, there are a lot of stakeholders involved from health and administration, okay, to answer this and set the things right and steady for manufacturing. Okay, and because life has to move forward. And also I would like to share one happy news. During last year pandemic outbreak in the month of March, we were earlier importing the swabs from for the nozzle and the throat sample collection. We were importing from China and Italy, from other places, but that was very expensive. We were paying at 600 rupees for 2 swabs. And later on, we realized that it can be manufactured in India, and we worked with CIMET. CIMET is a Government of India laboratory in Pune and an hospital in Bangalore, Rangadore Memorial Hospital. And we have come up and we got certification from ICMR that the first make in India and made in India. And this is the swab which we are giving at 30 rupees, which is on par with international quality. Okay, and in the latest, we had sent this to Ministry of Scientific Advisor to Government of India, and with a great effort. And we manufactured a machine also in Pune, in one of the small town near Swangli. We got this machine manufactured to make these swabs. And this is the first make in India swab. Later, many people, taken our ideas and they come up with different steps. Now we have reduced the cost, importing cost of 600 rupees to only 30 rupees. This is a big achievement, and we got a very good applause from Government of India also. I mean, whenever there is a need, we come out and do things for ourselves, and these things has to happen in all the segments of manufacturing. Even today, where most of the aero engines or the aero components are being imported, okay, this has to reduce, and we have to achieve Make in India. Make in India will not happen by saying and by giving some statements, but we have to actually and be ready, acquire the machines or whatever, create a manpower. Okay, then it's not impossible also to achieve Make in India and Made in India, of course, and we're going to do it in the coming years.
How far the reforms which are happening in workforce management is in line with industry's expectation?
I think this was one of the last. If you take land, after that it's labor. These are the two most important for the manufacturing sector. They want a clarity and ease in these laws. I think it's a big move from the government. Not going to be easy because labor is a very sensitive issue in our country. But I think it's a very progressive law that's coming in. It will only help. I don't think there's any point that we are seeing it will hinder. There are certain cost elements as well, but companies which are following the rules lawfully, I don't think they will find much of a difference in the cost, but it gives a lot of freedom. Now, what it does is ensures that people are paid to their, what they deserve. At the same time, how can we take care of our people from a, post retirement thing? So there is some amount of security for them. So PF, etc., because many companies were not following the rules on that. So this will all bring a uniformity in the labor practices, which will be good for everybody. And end of the day, we have to make money by keeping everybody, happy and growing in their life. If we make profit by having a section of society not getting paid what they deserve, it's not going to be a healthy society. So it's a very, very progressive, the laws that are getting combined and coming as a single law. It will help the companies. We have to look from it from a very progressive way with an open mindset. You have a flexibility that somebody can work for 12 hours and 4 days. So when your demand comes down, you schedule your workforce like that. And when the demand is more, you run 5 days. run 3 shifts, 8 people. So there's a good combination that you can work. There's a flexibility of having, fixed term people. You don't have to have everybody as permanent people. So depending on the demands, you can look at it, but give them the salary they deserve and take work as you deserve. So it's a good win-win for everybody.
Mr. Vijay want to know that how to start a manufacturing setup. He seems to be a upcoming entrepreneur. He want to start a manufacturing setup.
Yeah, see, one thing is very clear. Which sector or what product he wants to manufacture. I think that needs to be clear, and what's the demand and what's the segment or the market, or how he is going to promote the products, or where he is going to sell the products. That needs to be worked out. But today, the laws and the single window system, what many of the states has, is very easy to get the clearances. And there are even situations where you can start your factory and then obtain the permissions even after 2 years. So many things have been simplified. So not much issues in starting up a factory.
Even one more person, Mr. Dhruv, was also mentioning about a lot of policies are coming up to promote manufacturing, but he is not seeing much relaxation in terms of regulations.
Yeah, that's what I said. The compliances and the regulations, and it keeps changing. So that's where I think I'm sure the government is definitely looking at it. Otherwise, they will not do 3,000 changes in a year. Changes are always welcome. Okay, some might hurt or some might. You need to look it in a broader perspective. You need not look it on a minor or individual perspective. So if you look at it in a broader perspective, when some government is making 3,000 changes in the compliances and in the law in an year, in a single year, I think that makes a big difference.
How do you see the potential for additive manufacturing in India?
Of course, there is a huge demand, and the technology is growing every year, 20 to 25%. Okay, new companies coming and new incubations are coming, and new industries are coming up. And only thing is that the government policies has to be friendly, and we have to provide them funding and other infrastructure facilities and help them. The basic, very important thing is to educate them about the knowledge sharing about the technology and its applications is very important. And some of the industries and universities, they have come forward, and which is going to happen in the coming days in a bigger way. But of course, but it's happening. Yeah.
So what are the industry applications where additive manufacturing is going to be most popular?
See, the healthcare is going to be a very big sector. Okay, of course, then aerospace needs a technology like additive manufacturing. There's a huge component. And the space, for example, if you take ISRO, we need some of the critical components like fuel tanks, which cannot be machined because the material which is involved in machining of this is a tantalum, which is expensive than gold. Okay, you cannot machine and waste tantalum. So, but the technology like EBAM, electron beam additive manufacturing, helps you to build huge tanks, okay, at reduced cost and time. So these are the segments, and automotive is already in the flow. Many of the critical components to reduce time and cost are being manufactured, and some of the components are being used in engines. It is going to grow in all the segments.
Ravi sir, when it comes to the Make in India conversation, which is also a hyped conversation for last couple of years, there are many people who comments Make in India becoming Assembly India. That is it just driving the path of assembly in India rather than Make in India?
Okay, that's the first path. I mean, we cannot go whole hog. That's the first path. But if you're not doing anything, you have to also learn something. So assembly is the first step to that. And we have always discussed this when many of these policies were being made. I have been in many of those forums. They said that unless a value addition happens, there is no point in doing manufacturing as a volume. I mean, it's not that we just do machining some components and keep giving, or we do mining and give the ores to other country. They make components, sell it back to India. That's not the whole idea. So we will have to go through the value chain increase the value addition in the company. And we, in next decades, be proud to say these are products of India. But it will happen. This is the first step. And unless we take this step, the other cannot happen. There are sectors where people are working on this to see that how do we go up the value chain. And that's where the money is.
All industries are moving through very tough space for last 10 months, 12 months.
You really look inwards and see what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. We also looked at what we are doing well, what is our strength and how we can grow, and what are weaknesses we can share it. And it has been probably a very good phase for us. We learned a lot. Digitization was always a very important thing in our company for last 3 years. Any initiative, anything we will not undertake unless there is a digital intervention in that. So with this pandemic, it only speeded up what we wanted to do in next 3 years. Probably we started doing in next 2 months, and that speeded up the whole process. And as I wrote somewhere, it has helped us to come closer to the customer, become leaner and faster. But the good thing is we started thinking about many new things which we thought we could have not done in a normal course, and we're doing that. Jyotish showed about swab, but we were able to develop a mask making machine in 45 days. We designed it and made it. So we make masks now and support the society, which is not at all our area of working. Right? So this all gave a lot of what I see now is our team is more confident on many other things which they were not earlier. And as things should change, I think you asked a previous question how pandemic has hurt. Probably if this hurts again and again, it may be different. We are probably seeing a record order input. We are seeing demand like never before. The only problem is coming as a supply that nobody was ready to even think about such times to come. So we can't stop a pandemic from happening, but I think if we look at that as a positive thing, there are many things that we can do for ourselves, our societies, and the nation at large. On a lighter note, this has taught us to go back to our old cultures. I think there was nothing new in that. Whenever you and I went home, our parents taught the same thing: wash your hands, wash your face, and come home. So nothing new was there, but we forgot to follow that. We did all that, and somebody from Westerner came and told us that you have to do, then only you will not get to that virus. And we are doing that. When our parents said, we never wanted to believe that, right? So this pandemic has only taught us to go back to our roots, do the right things, simple things, and we will be safer.
Also would like to know what percentage of your business was successfully could able to manage on virtual platforms.
I can't give the number, but I can only tell that probably we reduced 30 to 40% of our time on product development. That's very important for us. And there are a lot of people involved in our product development. We can't have a team and develop a product. It's a cross-functional team. So digitization actually helped us get all of them connected. So it's much easier because when we develop a product, we take a market feedback. So it's all time online. The champions from the field are involved. The real designers are involved. R&D teams are involved. We have the production teams involved. So even if they're sitting in different places, it's easy to connect. So it's helped us about by 30-40% speeding up the product. In last 1 year, the number of product platforms that we have developed is what we normally would have done in last 2 or 3 years. So that's the change it has happened.
See, we had very short time because we started our operations on April 7th, supplying to pharma and other essential service companies like dairies, like biscuit manufacturing or bakeries, those kind of industries were looking, floor mills, these were all looking for gear motors and gearboxes replacements or repairs or something like that. We had a very short time. The good thing was we pooled all our resources. And of course, no business school in the world has taught how to handle a pandemic, or how to, when the business is completely goes to zero, how to bring it back. So this we had a pooled our resources, and we prepared a 24-page SOP. And of course, my HR team and my directors were very much involved in preparing this SOP, which was even published by FICCI magazine in the beginning of May. I'm talking in the very, very peak pandemic. Even companies were not even started. We had a 24-page SOP, and that was published. All the 24 pages was published in the FICCI, newsletter, which came in the month of May, first week. So that's the level or depth what we went. But one thing, what Mr. Ravi said, yes, we learned a lot in the process, and we booked orders, even several crores of single order, sitting at in front of the laptop, which we never believed in our lifetime that, being a salesman, and, you need to travel, you need to go to customers, you need to sit in front of them for finalizing an order. The Delhi airport project order, my team, finalized the order sitting in front of the laptop. So that's where, it changed all our perceptions that, yes, you also can, work from home. I thought only the IT industry or the finance sector or, engineering services only can work from home. So we also can work from home. So that's it. More than that, I think we learned a lot in the process, how to navigate the business. And we found that certain pockets or certain areas we are not able to reach because I always tell that our game is in the ground. But today we could not go to the ground. So we are playing all virtual. So we changed our rules, we changed our communication. In fact, we were in touch with all our employees and channel partners on a regular basis. We ensured that the communication goes from the topmost, to even to all our security or any level, housekeeping. We had a lot of opened the communication channels. So that's where we could minimize the risk. We could operate even during the peak period. And more than peak period, operating or doing business, I think keeping your employees intact and highly motivated. Of course, the families also should have confidence of sending their employees to. We had some training sessions for families. So we went to that level that, the families also should understand, what type of company we are working. We had hired external agencies, to manage this COVID situation. So that's what, we did during this period, and we sailed through.
Yeah, see, when we say additive manufacturing is making a rapid advancements in its applications and other segments like aerospace, defense, automotive, healthcare, and so on, we need to have a great support from the government as well. And the things has to be in a single window platform, and most of the approvals or the processes has to be reduced. And we should make sure that our administration should make sure that it has to be a process, it has to be a result oriented, but not the process oriented. So then only we will give justice in adopting the higher end technologies like 3D printing or robotics or whatever it may be. So it has to be a result oriented, and we should reduce the what we call as our footstep in getting all sort of approvals and the related activities involved in it. Yep. And we have to be result oriented than the process oriented, and we have to be very systematic. Okay. And as our Ravi Raghavan said, we should learn, we should go back and learn our disciplines again. Okay. And that's where we can cope up with any sort of pandemic and keep going and adopting and embracing the advanced manufacturing processes.
Thank you so much for exchanging your valuable thoughts and your inputs and experiences on today's topic of Manufacturing Outlook 2021. We hope you enjoyed this session thoroughly. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Ravi Raghavan, Mr. P.L. Muthusekhar, Dr. Jyotish Kumar. I would also like to thank our editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. With this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. I request you to stay tuned with us for more such sessions. Until then, thank you and goodbye.